In this video, we are going to study about the female organs of reproduction. The female reproductive organ include the following. They are the pair of gonads, the ovary on each side, which shed the ova once in each monthly cycle during reproductive period of life, that is about 15 years to 50 years. In addition, they secrete the sex hormones. Next, you have the uterine tube. So these are pair of uterine tubes or oviducts. Each convey the ova from the ovary to the uterus. The fertilization of the ovum takes place in the ampulla of the uterine tube. Next, you have the uterus. So this is the uterus. So this uterus acts as a incubating chamber for the implantation, growth and differentiation of the zygote until a fully formed baby is born. In reproductive period of life, the endometrium or mucous membrane of the uterine cavity is periodically cast off in each month, and the concomitant cycle of uterine bleeding is termed the menstruation. The menstruation is found only in the primates, including the mankind. During the period of pregnancy, the menstruation ceases and the uterus grows progressively and become palpable above the symphysis, pubic symphysis at the 4th month, and it reaches the midway between the umbilicus and the pubis during the 5th month, and at the umbilicus at the 6th month, and midway between the umbilicus and the siphisternum in 7th month, and close to the siphisternum in 8th month, and during 9th month the height of the uterus falls somewhat below the siphisternum because the fetal head descends and it is encased in the lesser pelvis. After the termination of the pregnancy, there is a period that is known as the puerperium exists, in which the structures of the uterus are written almost to the pre-gravid form within 6 to 8 weeks. The menstruation reappears usually after the puerperium. Next, you have the vagina. So the vagina, which acts as an organ of copulation and special receptacle for the sperms. A brief anatomical description of the ovary and the uterus is necessary before discussing the cyclical changes of these organs during the reproductive period. Next, we'll see about the ovary. Each ovary is almond shaped and it is attached to the posterior layer of the broad ligament. So this is the broad ligament. So it is attached to the posterior layer of the broad ligament by a fold that is known as the meso-ovarium. So this is the meso-ovarium, through which the vessels and the nerves reach the gland. In adult, it is about 3 centimeters long, 2 centimeters broad and 1 centimeter in thickness. The ovary presents an upper end. So this is the upper end and this is the lower end, and then you have 2 borders, an anterior border, a posterior border, a medial surface, and this is the lateral surface. The upper end is embraced by the uterine tube. So this is the uterine tube. So the upper end of the ovary is embraced by the uterine tube, which gives attachment to the ovarian fimbria. So these are the fimbria of the ovarian tube. The ovary is suspended from the pelvic brim by a peritoneal fold that is known as the suspensory ligament of the ovary. So this is the suspensory ligament of the ovary. The lower end is attached to the cornua of the uterus by the ligament of the ovary. So this is the proper ovarian ligament which attaches the ovary to the cornua of the uterus. So this is the cornua of the uterus. The anterior border is attached to the posterior layer of the broad ligament, which acts as a hilum of the ovary, and the posterior border is free and convex. The medial surface is overlapped by the terminal part of the uterine tube, and the lateral surface it rests on the ovarian fossa, which is a peritoneal depression of the lateral pelvic wall. So this is a section of the ovary. Here you can see this is the outer layer, that is the meso-ovarium, and this is the cortex, and this is the medulla of the ovary. This is a histological picture of the ovary. Here you can see the outer layer. So this is the germinal epithelium, and it is composed of single layer of cuboidal cells, and this makes the ovary a dull grey appearance, and it is not lined by coelomic mesothelium. Hence the ovary is an intraperitoneal organ, and the ova are directly shed into the peritoneal cavity before their entrance into the uterine tube. And this is the cortex. So the cortex of the ovary consists of framework of reticular fibers and the stroma cells. The stroma cells are aggregated beneath the germinal epithelium to form the tunica albuginea. So this is the tunica albuginea, which is formed by the aggregation of the stromal cells beneath the germinal epithelium. Before puberty, the cortex contains numerous primordial follicle, atretic follicles and interstitial cells. And during reproductive phase, you have the ovarian follicles of different stages of maturity. So here you can see the primary follicles with the primary oocyte, and here you can see the secondary follicles, and this is the mature follicle, and this is the corpus luteum after shedding the mature follicle, and this is the corpus albigans, and these are the atretic follicles. Then you have the medulla. So this is the medulla, and this is devoid of follicles and consists of connective tissue, unstriped muscles and numerous blood vessels. And after menopause, the cortex is fibrotic and contains numerous corpora albigans. Next we'll see about the uterine tubes. So these are the uterine tubes, which are also known as the fallopian tube, and each tube is about 10 centimeters long, and it is contained within the upper free margin of the broad ligament of the uterus. It consists of two openings. So this is a section of the fallopian tube, and here you can see the opening. So this is one opening that is called as the uterine opening, and this is the other opening that is called as the pelvic opening. It has four parts. From medial to lateral, you have the intramural part, then you have the isthmus, and then you have the ampulla, and then you have the infundibulum. The ampulla is the dilated, thin wall and tortuous, and occupies half of the total length of the tube. The uterine opening is narrow and communicates with the lateral angle of the uterus. The pelvic opening is wide, and it pierces the posterior layer of the broad ligament. Hence, the peritoneal cavity in female is an open sac. The pelvic opening is surrounded by number of finger-like projection that is called as the fimbriae, one of which is attached to the upper end of the ovary. Next we'll see the structure. The tube consists from outside inward. You have the serous layer, then you have the muscular layer, and this is the mucus layer. This is a histological picture of the ovarian tube, and here you can see this is the mucous membrane, which is thrown into numerous longitudinal folds, and this is lined by a single layer of columnar cells. These columnar cells are of two types. You have a ciliated columnar cells and secretory cells, and these cells are arranged alternatively and their cell heights are not similar. The ciliated cells are usually taller. The ciliary beads help to convey the ova and the zygote into the uterine cavity. The watery secretion of the secretory cells provides nutrition to the ova and the spermatozoa. The numerous folds of the tube ensures a close contact between the ova and the sperm and the surrounding cells of the tube so that the germ cells get best possible nutrition. Next to the mucous layer, you have the muscular layer, and outer layer is the serosa. So this is the serosa. Next we'll see about the uterus. It is a pear-shaped organ, thick-walled, hollow muscular organ situated obliquely in the central position of the pelvis. It consists of, from above downwards, you have the fundus. So this is the fundus, and this is the body, and this is the cervix. The average measurement of nulliparous adult uterus are the total length is 7.5 centimeter, the breadth is 5 centimeter, and total thickness is 2.5 centimeter, and the weight is about 30 to 40 grams. So when you see the fundus, it is the part of the uterus above the entrance of the uterine tube. And body, so this is the body, and it is flattened from before backwards, and it is wider in the upper part, and the body contains the uterine cavity. So this is the uterine cavity, which presents a vertical slit on the sagittal section and appears triangular on coronal section. So in the upper part, the uterine cavity with continuous on each side with the lumen of the uterine tube. Below, it communicates with the cervix at the internal os. So this is the internal os, which corresponds externally with the isthmus of the uterus. Next we'll see about the cervix. So this is the cervix. It consists of a spindle shaped cervical canal. So this is the cervical canal, and it communicates below with the vagina at the external os. So this is the external os, and this is the internal os. The mucous membrane of the canal presents two median longitudinal folds. You have an anterior and posterior median longitudinal fold. Here you can see the posterior median longitudinal fold. Numerous small folds radiate upward and laterally from the median fold, resembling the branches of the tree. Hence they are called as arbor vitae uteri. The ridges of the arbor vitae of one wall fit in the grooves of the opposite wall and virtually obliterate the cervical canal. In addition, the canal is provided with tubular mucus secreting cervical glands which keep the vaginal mucosa moist. And during pregnancy, the upper 1/4 of the cervical canal is taken up by the uterine cavity to form the lower uterine segment. This is a histological picture of the uterus. The wall of the uterus presents from outside inward. You have the serosa, the muscular layer, and the mucosal coat. The serosal coat is known as the perimetrium, and it is derived from the peritoneum, which invests the entire organ except the lateral border of the uterus, where it is reflected to the lateral pelvic wall as a bilaminar broad ligament. It is a pair ligament. The muscular coat is also known as the myometrium. It consists of three ill-defined layers of plain muscles, the outer longitudinal, then you have the middle circular, and again you have the inner reticular fibers. The longitudinal muscles helps in the expulsion of the contents of the uterine cavity, such as in the act of parturition. The circular muscle acts as a sphincter of the internal arch and helps to retain the product of conception until the fetus is fully developed. The reticular muscle layer contains most of the blood vessels of the uterus and it is known as the stratum vasculaire. So this layer acts as a living ligature of the uterus and stops the hemorrhage in menstruation and during the separation of the afterbirths. The great increase in the thickness of the myometrium during pregnancy is brought about by the hypertrophy of the pre-existing fibers and by the addition of new fibers, that is hyperplasia, from undifferentiated mesenchyme. The mucous coat or the endometrium, so this is the endometrium, consists of a surface epithelium and the stroma, that is known as the lamina propria. The surface epithelium is lined by simple columnar cells. Before puberty, the surface cells are ciliated. The endometrial stroma consists of highly cellular connective tissue and with the simple tubular glands. So these are the tubular glands in the stroma. The glands are lined by columnar cells. The endometrium presents two principal layers, a basal layer and a functional layer. So this is the basal layer and this is the functional layer. The basal layer or the stratum basale is thin, lies next to the myometrium and it is occupied by Blind's end of the uterine gland. And it is supplied by the straight arteries which are derived from the stratum vasculaire, and it is not exfoliated during menstruation. It helps in the regeneration of the endometrium after the menstrual flow ceases. The functional layer consists of a thick superficial zone and shows a periodic changes during menstrual cycle. This layer is supplied by coiled arteries from the vascular stratum, and most of the layer undergoes shedding during menstruation. And during pregnancy, the endometrium is called as the decidua because the stromal cells exhibit the decidual reaction by increase in the cell size and accumulation of the glycogen and lipid droplets in their cytoplasm. Next we'll see about the vagina. So this is the vagina. It extends from the vestibule, that is the cleft between the two labia minora, to the cervix. The anterior wall of the vagina is shorter than the posterior wall. The anterior wall measures about 7.5 centimeter and the posterior wall is about 9 centimeter in length. This is a section. So this is the vagina. So it surrounds the cervix forming 4 fornixes. So these are the fornices. The posterior fornix is the deepest one and it is covered externally by the peritoneum of the pouch of Douglas. Next we'll see the structure of the vagina. So this is a histological picture of the vagina. The wall of the vagina consists from outside inward. You have the muscular coat, then you have the lamina propria and the mucous coat. The lamina propria is devoid of glands, and the mucous membrane is lined by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. After puberty, the cytoplasm of the epithelial cells contain glycogen which appears in considerable quantities at the time of ovulation. The glycogen is converted into lactic acid by the fermentive action of the Dorlins bacilli, which are the normal bacterial flora of the vagina. The glycogen provides the nutrition to the male gametes during their passage through the vagina. Moreover, the acidic medium of the vagina is detrimental to the sperms and helps in their on-drive to the cervical canal and uterine cavity where the reaction is alkaline.